All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am Michelle, and with me, of course, is Diana
Hello.
and special guest Lilo, who is full on puppy judging us right now.
hmm
We are joined this afternoon by author Alexa Martin. We're going to be talking about her latest book, Next Door Nemesis. Thank you so much for making time for us, Alexa. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, for our listeners who may not yet be familiar with Next Door Nemesis, can you give us an overview of what the story is about?
Yeah, so Next Door Nemesis is about Collins, who had been trying to live her best life in LA when it all kind of comes crashing down on her and she gets canceled for getting caught on video doing some damage to her ex's car. And she's forced to move back with her parents in suburban Ohio, where she discovers her ex-best friend turned nemesis is her next door neighbor. And they go back and forth for a little while until he serves her with an HOA violation. And for revenge, she decides to run against him for HOA president just to get back at him. And so it's a lot of suburban pettiness, drama, turned to kissing and romance and fun.
And some of those HOAs can be super intense.
I literally got the idea because one of my friends tried to join hers and they started having secret board meetings and trying to kick her out. And I was like, this is not real life.
They are so shady. It's this really weird gray area of law that they operate in, and I know a lot of attorneys who are like, "Oh, this is not good at all."
And I did like research to how much power they had.
hmm
I
There's
was just going to
a
say they have way more power than they should sometimes.
what's his
Yes.
name?
I was shocked.
John Oliver. He did a whole thing on HOAs. And there is a hilarious skit that they do where the how the HOA managed to keep a house. And it was shocking that it's even more vile than what I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so anyway, we could go off on rabbit holes, but so we have to kick off the conversation talking about Collins because from the first line that I read, Collins is just, I need to be her friend. Like she needs to be real and we need to hang out because her and Ruby are just so much fun to read. What, how do you get to know the characters well enough in your writing process to really bring their personalities out so strongly that you love her from the first line that you're reading about?
Oh, thank you so much. My favorite thing to write is a hot mess female main character. It is my favorite. And with that, it's really fun to create this bounty of characters around her to kind of ground her and bring her back so everybody bounces off of each other. With Collins, her voice just kind of struck me right away. It's an HOA romance, right? Like it had to be silly. Like this could not be like a very serious book. Like I really, really wanted it to be a rom-com with kissing. So before I started writing it, I watched like the pilot episode of about every sitcom I could find, right? And just finding that lighthearted uh sitcom voice and trying to give it to her. And I think she's so fun and like especially combined with Ruby in all of my books, writing the friendships. Like I love the romance, but like a very very close second are the female friendships throughout the book. So her and Ruby, I was just like, okay, she's gonna be a hot mess and she's gonna fall in love. So she's gonna have a very put together pageanty best friend who hates men, right? Like just like all of the opposites, just having fun. I really wanted my readers to end this book with like a smile on their face. I wanted everybody to have fun while they read it.
And I think one thing that you just made me think of while you were uh, responding to that was
Rambling.
how fun,
No such
how
thing as
fun.
rambling. It is not a bad thing in this
No,
podcast.
no, No,
Okay.
we don't
Okay,
ramble.
perfect.
We what's the word that I'm oh, it'll come back, but it's not rambling. It's a very eloquent word. Um, but one thing that you made me think of was how fun it is, or how fun it must have been to go into Nate and Collins with all of this backstory. So you didn't have to, have them meet and get to know each other because they have all that backstory already, but they still had to get to know each other. So you kind of had the best of both worlds in that relationship.
Yeah, it's one
So
of the reasons I love second chance romance so much. There's so much history, and I think that just raises the stakes and the intrigue between the characters so much, where you can drop little hints and you're like, wait, what happened back then? And I think it's so much fun to read, and it's a blast to write.
I love how when it comes to romances, there's so many intricacies within the genre itself. It's not just buy one, you get the standard romance, like you seem to think in the past, like with Fabio or what have you. Um, no offense, Fabio or Fabio fans. But there's so many intricacies within the genre where you have enemies to lovers, you have second chance romances, you have friendship, ones. And I love that about the romances. I feel like that's more of a statement than it is a question. But my turn to ramble.
I love the genre too. I think there's a safety in it that I find really comforting. And I think a lot of people probably found it during the pandemic where you needed some safety, right? Like this book, I wanted everybody to laugh, but I have a book that explores grief, and it feels safe to explore more serious topics and conversations when you know that even if they're struggling at the beginning, by the end, they'll be happily ever after. And even though you know that, there's still so many different ways to get to the destination. Like you can have 3 books that are romances that have the same tropes and they will have nothing in common. And it's so fun to see how everybody plays with it and comes to the genre with their ideas. I love it.
And that's another interesting thing, because I've seen this online too, where it's to be classified as a romance, there has to be a happily ever after at the end, correct?
Yeah. So you can have books that aren't romance, but have romantic elements, but for it to be fully classified as romance, like it is the promise to the reader, like there will be happily ever after. It's like having a mystery where they don't solve it, where you're like, wait, I came for that part. You forgot something really important.
you didn't really want to know who did it, right?
Yeah. It's not important.
So I know you touched a little bit on writing those female friendships earlier. And Ruby, I had to laugh when I was reading the first conversation that Collins and Ruby had, because it reminded me so much of Diana and I, that you have to have that one friend that, is going to smack you around a little bit if you're being dumb, like she gave her time to wallow and be sad, and and she recognized the need for that, but she also recognizes the need for, okay, now you pick yourself up, now it's time to get back and get going, and you need that friend. What is your favorite part of exploring those friendships and creating those friendships in your stories?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most for me in like the new romance, like that stage, one of the parts that I always think is so fun is when you go to your friend and you're giddy and you're like, I met a guy, right? I don't think romances, for the most part, obviously, I just read one where they fall in love while they're camping and they're alone. So that one did take place in a bubble. But for the most part, these don't take place like when you're falling in love. It's not just you and the person. And so it's how that love and relationship takes place in the world and with the relationships that you already have. And I also really want my characters to be full people. Like I want them to fall in love and be happy, but I don't want their only goal in life to be to fall in love. I don't want that to be their only person in the world. So to give them a full life where it's just like, oh great, they're falling in love too. But it's not like if they don't fall in love, their whole world will be ruined, right? I think it makes it more romantic when they're choosing each other because they can choose each other, not because they have to choose each other. And I think the friendships really add to that. And I think a good secondary character, they also kind of shout what the reader is thinking, right? So when they're just like, oh, I hate this guy, the main character is saying that, and then their friends are just like, I saw the way you were looking at him. No, you don't, right? They're kind of the reader's voice, like saying what we want to say to them, shaking them a little bit to like get them on the right track so they're not being stupid.
I love that comment, that observation, that those secondary characters can sometimes be the voice for the reader and give the reader a way to participate, so the reader can go, that, that character gets me, or that, that character is doing what I would do. Because sometimes we all have had that experience where we want to reach into a book and like kind of, shake the characters a little bit.
Yeah, multiple times.
So now while I was making the questions for today, I realized that we've never actually outright asked this question before, but it's a very interesting question, which is, what is your favorite part of the process? Do you love drafting, or do you love editing better?
Oof. Both. I have a love-hate relationship with both. I really love the beginning of a book. Really, like, I love coming up with the concept. I love drafting like the blurb where I'm like, oh, this is what it's going to be, and here's how fun it will be, and this is what the tone will be. I really love those like first couple of chapters. And then sometimes I struggle a little more. But I actually really do like edits, because I feel like as I've written a few more books, my drafts have been a little cleaner. So I know when I get them, I'm like, oh, this is going to take that one little thing that I knew I was missing that I couldn't figure out. Here's how it's going to like get to this next level. And it's really fun to see it shape up. But the beginning of the book is as overwhelming as it is. It's also so fun because there's so many possibilities where you're just like, oh, this could be the best book ever written. Even though by the end of the book, you're usually like, this is the worst book ever written.
But they have heard of you. If you're a writer, that's my favorite Johnny Depp paraphrase. I'm the worst writer in the world.
So yeah, and I think, that kind of goes with the writing process. It starts out it's like well, not necessarily, I don't say that, but it's a roller coaster. It starts out, this is amazing, and then you reach the point where you regret ever getting on the ride.
Yeah,
and
it's like when Rapunzel comes out of her tower for the first time.
This is the best day ever.
Yeah.
And then you hit the part where you're drinking wine with a crazy straw straight out of the bottle.
Yeah.
So it's all part of the creative process.
Yeah, there's highs and lows to everything worth doing. Like, it can't always be easy. But then there's that one magical point where you like write a chapter and you're like, oh, this is exactly how I wanted it to be. Like, there's a chapter in Next Door Nemesis that I laugh every time I read it. Like, yes, I am the person that laughs at their own jokes, but like, I'm just like, this is what I wanted it to be. It turned out. And so there are those magical moments where you're like, wow, I did that. Like, I created it out of nothing. I'm a crafter.
Well, I mean,
I need this.
Yeah. Well, as the saying goes, the no tears for the reader, no tears for the author, no tears for the reader, but no laughs for the author, no laughs for the reader. It's a very real thing.
Oh, I like that.
I agree. I was talking to another author today, and she was saying like her what I read was so good. And she was like, I was just having fun while I read it. And I was like, well, that's why I was laughing and having fun reading it. Like, it comes across. I hope that if I'm having fun, that the readers will be too.
I think there's definitely a connection, that if the author is having fun writing it, the readers will have fun reading it.
Yeah.
I know we came up on our time super, super quick, but Alexa, thank you so much for making time for us. I have to say, I love on your website that you say your phone autocorrects rose to rosé.
Listen, the pandemic was a hard time for me, okay?
I read that. I was like, oh, she can be our friend. We'll be fine. But thank you so much for coming and hang out with us. And everyone, if you would like to order your own copy of Next Door Nemesis, be sure to check out the link on our show notes to our bookshop on bookshop.org. As always, bookshop.org supports our incredible writers. It does support the podcast, but most importantly, it supports all of the wonderful indie bookstores out there. And I hope the rest of your afternoon is event-free and very calm.
Oh, yes. Like every day as a mother, every day.
Always something.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you so
so
much for
much.
having me. This was really fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.